I have a wooden paperclip holder on my desk at work. And over the years, as I've moved from office to office, it's always come with me. It's like a favorite little thing on my desk. Now, I'm old-fashioned enough to need paper clips for my pieces of paper. And so it sits there and it's quite useful. It's quite functional as well as looking decorative. Now, it's an olive wood little box, and it's got a magnetic ring at the opening so that the paper clips don't fall out. I like it a lot. I like the look of it, and I like to use it. Most of all, I like the inscription that's upon it, because it says on a little brass plate on the front, in Hebrew, Lasim Ketz L'Matzav Milchama, to put an end to the state of war. And then below that, there's a little picture on a brass plate. It's a copy of a photograph of Rabin, Clinton, and Arafat shaking hands at Camp David as part of the Oslo Accords in 1993. 32 years ago, a generation. What a hope and a joy that was. And I put my paperclip box on my table then and have kept it there ever since. But we've moved on from those far away, hopeful days. This time, last year at Rosh Hashanah, it felt as if we were coming to the end of a very, very difficult year. And we all hoped for a better year ahead. And yet, as we look back on this past year, it seems even harder than the one before. The pain of what happened on the 7th of October 2023 is still acute. And now over 700 days have passed for the remaining 20 or so hostages taken from their homes and left to rot, to die in underground tunnels without light or food. And there are families in Israel who continue to grieve for their loved ones who have died. And traumatically, some are still left with no knowledge if their loved ones are still alive. And young men continue to lose their lives in battle. And Israel remains a truly, deeply traumatized society. At the same time, and we can hold both truths, the situation in Gaza is horrific. Men, women, and children who played no part in the actions of Hamas are starving, deprived of food, medical care, and basic supplies to exist. Thousands have died, cities destroyed, and the war shows no sign of ending. Humanitarian aid has been restricted, and people have been displaced from homes to tents to open ground, time and again. Our distress as Jews in this country is compounded by the questions we have about how this war is being conducted and its very continuation towards an unknown end and future for the region. Where lies our aspiration for coexistence now? And whilst we believe that Judaism teaches compassion and humanity and values every life, the rhetoric of some in the current Israeli government feels very distant from these values. It feels difficult and painful to be a Jew. How can this day and this season help us to reflect on what has been and look to the future? Rachel Goldberg Polin, the mother of Hersh Goldberg, who was murdered by Hamas, reminds us that Rosh Hashanah is not just looking back at the horrors of the past year, but has to be the start of something new and better. She says, "We are at a moment in the Jewish story in history, in Israel's story, in our personal stories, a crisis moment. The modern Hebrew word for crisis is mashber, but in biblical Hebrew, mashber means birthing pain. Rachel Goldberg Polin shares, because you are in that moment of crisis where you feel you cannot take it, that you're being broken, sometimes that's a labor pain, and just ahead is the birth and the light. And we must go towards that light. We have no option. The rabbis of the Talmud taught, for sins between a person and God, Yom Kippur atones. But for the sins between a person and their fellow, Yom Kippur does not atone unless they first make amends to the person they have wronged. We have witnessed enough brutality and violence between people to know that it only engenders more hatred and cruelty. But what about the sins between people and God? What are those? The great 20th century French philosopher Emmanuel Levinas asks the same question. What are the sins against God for which Yom Kippur can atone? Usually these are thought of as ritual sins. But Levinas interprets sin between us and God in a different and a startling way. Amongst the sins against God includes idolatry and despair and not believing in the triumph of good. These are the hardest sins to address, and these are the sins which deeply affect our relationship to make meaning of our world and to find our place in it. In the nearly 2 years since October the 7th, many of us have felt despair and doubted that good could triumph. The appalling and brutal attacks shook our faith and our very being, and what has happened since has added to our sense of hopelessness. Despair is understandable, but for Levinas, it is wrong. He wrote not long after the Holocaust, in full knowledge that for him it was a moral duty not to despair and not to give up the hope that good would triumph. As he put it, there was a sickness of the soul, but we do have the opportunity of this season of repentance to heal this sickness. For the antidote to despair is hope. Not the naive hope or the optimistic outlook that things will just come out all right. Hope is not the same as optimism. Jonathan Sachs has written that optimism is the belief that things will get better, but hope is the belief that if we work hard enough, we can make things better. It takes a great deal of courage, fortitude, and resilience to have hope. When Rabbi Leo Beck, the great leader of German Jewry, came out of the black midnight of the concentration camp at Theresienstadt, he looked around at the world and those who had been silent and those who had done evil. But he did not despair. Rather, he comforted and he healed, he taught, and he preached. He brought people back together again after their trauma. He worked for reconciliation with the German people, and he sought to rebuild the Jewish people with renewed hope and vigor. If these people who have gone through such suffering can continue to hope in and work for a better world, surely we can too. When Abraham wields the knife to sacrifice his son Isaac, a messenger from God, Malach Adonai, calls out and stays his hand. The messenger shows Abraham the ram caught in the thicket that will be exchanged for Isaac so that his descendants will become a great nation, bringing blessing to all the world. When Hagar leaves her son Ishmael to die in the wilderness because there is no water, a Malach Adonai, a messenger from God, shows her the hidden well of water to sustain her and Ishmael, so that he too may become the father of a great nation. The same messenger, Malach Adonai, giving hope to these two peoples when they could not find it themselves. Where there is despair, we need Malach Adonai, messengers from God, to remind us that there is sustenance and nourishment for our work, for the good. We need to see Malach Adonai in our own time. And I believe these messengers of God are here, and we have to bring them into the light. A number of years ago, an Israeli farmer living in the Shomron Valley, with its rich soil, perfect for growing olives, decided to combine her harvest with local Palestinian farmers, and together they made a special virgin olive oil that they called peace oil, and they marketed it to consumers all over the world. It was exceptionally high quality, and everyone in the region benefited from the proceeds, Israeli and Palestinian farmers together. And that collaboration still continues today. She is a Malach Adonai. 3 years ago at Limud, the International Jewish Learning Festival, we sat with Aziz Abu Sarah, a Palestinian peace builder from the West Bank. He had a dream of overcoming the obstacles of welcoming visitors to his home and village to learn about his family's life and heritage. Along with an American Jew, Scott Cooper, Aziz built a travel company called Mejdi. It's an international travel company that takes social responsibility to heart. It takes visitors across Israel and the West Bank to learn about each other's peoples and come to know each other as friends. Visitors stay and eat in each other's homes, and they leave with new friends and a renewed commitment to coexistence. Mejdi has now extended its socially responsible travel and now does the same work in Northern Ireland, bringing Catholics and Protestants together who still harbor resentments towards each other. Aziz Abu Sarah is a Malach Adonai. 2 years ago, many here will remember, we invited Micah Hendler and Amir Mohammed, an American Jew and a Jerusalem Arab, to talk to us about their project in Jerusalem of building a combined choir of Jewish and Palestinian high school students, not just to sing together, but to talk together, to learn about each other, to understand their different identities and their histories. We were so moved by their work here at CRT that we invited the whole choir to come and sing and teach us here in this sanctuary. Since then, they have blossomed as a choir, singing all over the world. But back home in Jerusalem, they have faced insurmountable odds. They've even had to come off social media because of the threats against them. They have continued, however, to rehearse and to perform. Jews from West Jerusalem, Palestinians from East Jerusalem, and they have become friends and allies in the work for coexistence. Micah Hendler and Amir Mohammed and the Jerusalem Youth Chorus are Malachei Adonai, messengers of God. Rabbi Arik Asherman lives in Jerusalem. Every day, he opens his mobile phone and gets messages from Palestinian farmers on the West Bank who are about to harvest their olives. He gathers his volunteers and he drives straight into danger. because in helping his Palestinian neighbors, he has been beaten, arrested, threatened, locked up, and humiliated. He regularly is known by the settlers, the Israeli army and the police, and even the boys from the yeshiva to be the one to throw stones at. But he believes everyone is created in the image of God, and he will not, and I think at this stage he cannot, do anything but offer protection to those trying to live their lives and provide for their families. Arik spoke here in Boston just last year, and when asked what we could do to support him in his work, he said it would be really good to have a second mobile phone so that he could respond to more people. Today, and I got an email from him last night, today he's not praying in a synagogue. He is in the village of Duma, which is a Palestinian village on the West Bank. He's acting as a protective presence for a family whose sheep have been stolen and whose water supply has been destroyed. Arik Asherman is a tall, tanned, handsome, bearded, tousled, unkept long hair hippie and a rabbi. And he has a soft, gentle voice, and he has this glint in his eyes. You could mistake him as he walks in his sandals across the sand for a Jesus-like figure. He's truly a Malach Adonai. And to all of these can be added all the organizations who work for coexistence despite all the odds. Omdim B'Yachad, Jews and Palestinians standing together. Competence for Peace, incorporating ex-Israeli and Palestinian soldiers and terrorists. The Bereaved Families Forum that brings together the widows and orphans of Palestinians and Israelis to share the pain of their loss and commit to finding a new way to coexist together. Our fate and our work as progressive Zionists and all those who love what Israel was meant to be should be in lockstep with all of these Malachei Adonai, all of these messengers, Israeli and Palestinian, who are deeply committed to Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state, who show up to defend Israel and maintain its security, who affirm the right to self-determination for the Palestinian people, and who desire to be a permanent fixture, accepted and integrated into the fabric of the Middle East and among the community of nations. Fania Oz Sulzberger is the daughter of Amos Oz, the famous Israeli Nobel laureate. She said, "Our work is not about abandoning Zionism. It's about demanding that Zionism return to its moral roots. Liberal Judaism is rooted in the belief that Israel can be both Jewish and democratic, that our national liberation movement should be a symbol of human rights and a champion of independence for all peoples. For liberal Zionists, the call is to remain rooted in that listening and to hear both the cries of Israeli hostages and the despair of Palestinian civilians, to demand policies that reflect our values, our Jewish values, and to believe still in the future of coexistence. Liberal Zionists are called to listen, to be compassionate to both the pain of our people and the cry of our neighbor. This is not a weakness or a naivete, it's a moral courage. The challenge is not to choose between empathy and security, but to hold both in tension and to build a future where neither must be sacrificed. Through these Yamim Yoraim, through these days of war, through our prayers and our reflections, may we be able to see wells of water beyond the wilderness, light beyond the darkness, and hope beyond despair. May we feel a sense of God's nearness through the Malachei Adonai, these divine messengers who bring hope and find healing. And may we continue to hope that despite everything, that the dream of peace and coexistence, which seems so distant now, will be fulfilled, bimhera v'yamenu, soon and in our time. Amen.